He'd been working at Sunrise Senior Living in Portland, Oregon for 11 years, helping elderly residents with their daily needs, sharing meals, playing cards, listening to their stories. Just a gentle man in scrubs who seemed to have endless patience and a knack for keeping even the most difficult residents calm. Until the night when one of the residents had a sudden cardiac emergency, and in the critical minutes before the ambulance arrived, everyone discovered that their kind caregiver wasn't just good at emotional support, he was a former Army combat medic who had spent 4 tours saving lives under fire in Iraq and Afghanistan, and he still knew exactly what to do when every second counted. Welcome to the Human Stories. Before we begin this profound story of hidden expertise and continued service, tell me in the comments which city you're watching from today, and if you believe stories like this deserve to be remembered, hit that subscribe button and help us honor those who continue healing long after leaving the battlefield. Daniel Rivera started his shift at Sunrise Senior Living at 2:30 p.m., the same time he'd been starting afternoon shifts for 11 years. At 41 years old, Daniel had found his calling in elder care, a job that required patience, compassion, physical stamina, and the ability to connect with people at their most vulnerable. The pay wasn't great, the hours were long, but Daniel had never regretted his decision to work with seniors. The facility housed 68 residents, ranging from relatively independent seniors who just needed a supportive community to those with advanced dementia who required constant care and supervision. Daniel worked primarily on the memory care unit, where residents needed the most help with activities of daily living, bathing, dressing, eating, medication management, and the countless small tasks that became difficult as minds and bodies aged. What his coworkers and the residents' families didn't know was that before Daniel Rivera became a caregiver at a retirement home in Portland, he had been Specialist Daniel Rivera, United States Army, combat medic with the 101st Airborne Division. 4 deployments between 2006 and 2013, 2 to Iraq, 2 to Afghanistan, 4 years of treating battlefield trauma, performing emergency medicine under fire, making life-or-death decisions in conditions that would break most people. Daniel had seen things that still haunted his dreams sometimes. He'd held dying soldiers, performed emergency procedures with limited supplies, worked through exhaustion and fear and the constant awareness that any moment could bring another casualty. When he came home after his 4th deployment, he knew he couldn't go back. The cumulative trauma was too much, but he also knew he couldn't stop being a medic. Healing people was who he was, even if he could never again do it in a combat zone. Elder care had seemed like a strange choice to his Army buddies. Why would a combat medic want to work in a nursing home? But Daniel understood something that others didn't. The skills that had made him effective in combat, staying calm under pressure, managing multiple urgent needs simultaneously, providing comfort in frightening situations, recognizing subtle changes that indicated deteriorating conditions. These were exactly the skills that made someone excellent at elder care. That Tuesday afternoon started normally. Daniel checked in at the nurses' station, reviewed the notes from the morning shift, and got updates on residents who needed special attention. Mr. Patterson in room 2112 was having a difficult day with his dementia, becoming agitated and confused. Mrs. Chen in 2017 had fallen the night before and needed extra monitoring. Mr. Thompson in 2115 had a doctor's appointment the next day and was anxious about it. Daniel moved through his shift with practiced efficiency. He helped Mrs. Chen to the dining room for dinner, making sure she was steady on her feet and not showing signs of pain from her fall. He spent 20 minutes with Mr. Patterson, using the calm, reassuring tone that often helped dementia patients feel safe when their confusion frightened them. He checked in with Mr. Thompson, listened to his concerns about the doctor's appointment, and reminded him that they'd go together and Daniel would be there to help him remember what the doctor said. This was the work Daniel had done for 11 years. It wasn't dramatic or headline-worthy. It was the quiet, essential work of helping people maintain dignity and comfort in the final chapters of their lives. Some of his Army medic friends didn't understand it, but Daniel knew. Whether he was saving a 19-year-old soldier in Kandahar or helping an 87-year-old veteran eat dinner with dignity in Portland, he was doing the same work, caring for people when they needed it most. By 7 p.m., dinner was finished and residents were settling in for the evening. Some watched television in the common room, others preferred to return to their rooms to read or rest. Daniel was helping to transition residents from the dining room when one of his coworkers, a young nursing assistant named Jessica, approached him with concern in her voice. "Daniel, can you check on Mr. Rodriguez? He says he's feeling funny and he doesn't look right to me." Daniel immediately shifted into assessment mode. Mr. Rodriguez was 79 years old, a Korean War veteran with a history of heart disease. He was usually sharp, engaged, one of the residents who didn't need much assistance. If he was saying he felt funny, that was significant. Just pressure. Mr. Rodriguez said, his voice strained. Chest feels heavy, hard to breathe. Daniel's combat medic training was already running through a checklist. Classic signs of cardiac event. Time was critical. Every minute of delay increased damage to heart muscle, decreased chances of full recovery. Jessica, call 911 right now. Tell them we have a possible MI myocardial infarction. Patient is conscious but symptomatic. Then get me the emergency medical kit from the nurse's station and let the charge nurse know we have a code. Jessica hesitated for just a second, surprised by the sudden command authority in Daniel's usually gentle voice. Then she ran to follow his instructions. Daniel was already helping Mr. Rodriguez into a better position, keeping him calm while continuously monitoring his condition. Sir, I need you to stay with me. You're having a heart attack, and help is on the way. I'm going to take care of you until the ambulance gets here. A heart attack? Mr. Rodriguez's eyes showed fear. Yes, sir, but you're in good hands. I'm going to give you some aspirin and keep you stable. Just focus on breathing slowly and staying calm for me. Other residents were starting to notice the commotion. Some were becoming distressed, seeing one of their own in medical crisis. Daniel needed to manage multiple things simultaneously, keep Mr. Rodriguez stable, keep other residents calm, coordinate with staff, prepare for paramedic arrival. It was exactly like combat medicine, just without the explosions and gunfire. Same pressure, same stakes, same need for absolute clarity under stress. Jessica returned with the emergency kit. Daniel quickly administered aspirin, positioned Mr. Rodriguez to optimize his breathing and blood flow, and began a continuous assessment of vital signs while keeping up a steady stream of calm, reassuring communication. You're doing great, Mr. Rodriguez. Ambulance will be here in about 4 minutes. Just keep breathing with me. Slow breaths, that's it. Daniel walked quickly to the common room where Mr. Rodriguez was sitting in his usual chair. One look told Daniel everything he needed to know. The man's skin had a grayish pallor. He was sweating despite the comfortable room temperature. His breathing was slightly labored, and he had his hand pressed to his chest. Mr. Rodriguez, I need you to tell me exactly what you're feeling, Daniel said, kneeling beside the chair and automatically checking the man's pulse at his wrist. Rapid? Irregular? Not good. The charge nurse, Karen, arrived and looked shocked. Daniel, what's happening? Acute MI. Classic presentation. I've administered aspirin, positioned him for optimal blood flow. Vitals are stable, but we need that ambulance here now. Karen stared at him. Are you sure it's a heart attack? Ma'am, I'm sure, and we need to move quickly. Something in Daniel's tone made Karen stop questioning and start helping. She began clearing other residents from the immediate area, giving them space to work, while Daniel continued his focused care of Mr. Rodriguez. The man's condition was deteriorating slightly, his breathing was becoming more labored, his pallor worsening. Daniel knew they were in the critical window where intervention could make the difference between survival and catastrophic outcome. Mr. Rodriguez, I need you to listen to me. You're a Korean War veteran, right? You've been through tough situations before. I need you to use that strength right now. Stay with me. Focus on my voice. The ambulance is almost here. You know I was in the service? Mr. Rodriguez managed between labored breaths. Yes, sir. And so was I. Iraq and Afghanistan. Combat medic. I've done this before, and I promise you're going to be okay. Just trust me and keep breathing. Something changed in Mr. Rodriguez's eyes. Despite his pain and fear, there was recognition. One veteran recognizing another, understanding that he was in capable hands. The ambulance arrived 6 minutes after Jessica's call. When the paramedics rushed in, they found Daniel providing textbook cardiac emergency care, continuously monitoring vitals, keeping the patient calm and stable, ready with a complete report of symptoms, timeline, and interventions. 79-year-old male, history of cardiac disease, sudden onset chest pressure and dyspnea at night, administered 325 milligrams aspirin at night, vitals currently BP 142/88, pulse 94 and irregular, respirations 22 and labored, patient is conscious and responsive but symptomatic, classic MI presentation. The lead paramedic looked at Daniel with surprise. Are you medical staff? Caregiver, but I have some background in emergency medicine. As the paramedics took over and prepared Mr. Rodriguez for transport, Daniel stayed close, continuing to provide information and reassurance until they wheeled him out to the ambulance. The entire intervention from initial assessment to ambulance departure had taken 12 minutes. Daniel's combat medic training had kicked in so automatically that he'd barely been aware he was doing it. After the ambulance left, Daniel stood in the now quiet common room, feeling the familiar post-crisis adrenaline dump. His hands were shaking slightly. They always did after high-stress medical situations, even back in the Army. He took a few deep breaths, centering himself. Daniel. Karen's voice made him turn around. The charge nurse was staring at him like she'd never seen him before. What just happened? You handled that like you've done it 100 times. I have, Daniel said quietly, just in different circumstances. Over the next hour, as the facility returned to normal operations and residents were reassured that Mr. Rodriguez was getting excellent care at the hospital, the story gradually emerged. Daniel Rivera, the gentle caregiver who played cards with residents and helped them with their daily needs, was a combat veteran who had provided emergency medical care in some of the most dangerous places on Earth. 11 years, Karen said as they sat in the break room after the crisis had passed. 11 years you've worked here, and you never mentioned you were a combat medic. It never seemed relevant, Daniel said. My job is taking care of residents, making sure they're comfortable and safe. The military stuff is just where I learned some of the skills. Just where you learned some skills. Daniel, you saved Mr. Rodriguez's life tonight. That's not just skills, that's expertise that most of our staff doesn't have. Daniel was quiet for a moment. I've worked in elder care long enough to know that what happened tonight is the exception. Most of what I do here is much quieter, helping someone remember to take their medication, listening to the same story for the 100th time because it makes them happy to tell it, being patient when dementia makes them frustrated and angry. That's the real work. Tonight was just using old training when it was needed. But word spread quickly through the facility and among residents' families. Daniel Rivera, who had been caring for their loved ones with such patience and kindness, was a decorated combat veteran who had literally saved lives under fire. Families who had always appreciated Daniel's care now understood that their parents and grandparents were being looked after by someone with extraordinary medical training and crisis management experience. Mr. Rodriguez survived his heart attack and returned to Sunrise Senior Living 3 weeks later after cardiac intervention and rehabilitation. The first person he asked to see when he got back was Daniel. They told me at the hospital, Mr. Rodriguez said as Daniel helped him get settled back into his room, that if you hadn't recognized what was happening so quickly, if you hadn't known exactly what to do, I probably wouldn't have made it. The cardiologist said those first few minutes were critical, and you handled them perfectly. Daniel smiled. Just doing my job, sir. Glad to have you back. No, Mr. Rodriguez said firmly, it wasn't just your job. You knew what you were doing because you've saved lives before. The staff told me about your service. 4 tours. Yes, sir. 101st Airborne. I was 2nd Infantry Division. Korea. Different war, different time, but same commitment. Mr. Rodriguez extended his hand and Daniel shook it, the handshake of 2 veterans who understood sacrifice and service. Over the following weeks, Daniel's role at Sunrise Senior Living evolved in subtle ways. The facility administration asked him to lead emergency response training for other staff members. His co-workers began asking him questions about medical situations they weren't sure how to handle. Families specifically requested that Daniel be involved in their loved ones' care, especially for residents with complex medical needs. But the biggest change was in how the residents themselves viewed Daniel. Many of them were veterans, Korean War, Vietnam, some from World War II. They had always liked Daniel because he was kind and patient. Now they understood that he was one of them, someone who had served, who understood what it meant to put others' lives ahead of your own comfort, who had made the same commitment they had made decades earlier. One afternoon, about 2 months after Mr. Rodriguez's cardiac event, Daniel was helping Mr. Patterson, the resident with dementia, who often became agitated and confused, when the elderly man suddenly had a moment of clarity. You were in the war, Mr. Patterson said, his usually confused eyes suddenly sharp and focused. Not my war, a different war, but you were there. Yes, sir, Daniel said gently, Iraq and Afghanistan. Did you see bad things? Daniel was quiet for a moment, then answered honestly. Yes, sir, I did. But you're still taking care of people, still helping. That's good. That's real good. Mr. Patterson's eyes clouded again as the dementia reclaimed his mind, but for that brief moment he had understood something important about the man caring for him. Daniel continued his work at Sunrise Senior Living, but now with a deeper appreciation for how his past and present were connected. Every time he helped a resident through a difficult day, every time he stayed calm when someone was frightened or in pain, every time he recognized a subtle change in someone's condition that might indicate a larger problem, he was using skills earned in combat, applied to a gentler but equally important mission. One evening, about 6 months after Mr. Rodriguez's heart attack, Daniel was finishing his shift when Karen approached him with a request. "Daniel, we have a new admission coming next week. Marine Corps veteran Vietnam has PTSD and some pretty significant medical needs. The family is worried about how he'll adjust to facility care. Would you be willing to be his primary caregiver?" Daniel didn't hesitate. "Of course. What's his background?" "Infantry. Saw heavy combat. Has nightmares, anxiety, doesn't trust easily. The family thinks having another veteran caring for him might help." When the new resident arrived the following week, Daniel was there to help him get settled. The man was 74, a former Marine named James Sullivan, who looked suspicious and uncomfortable in his new surroundings. "Mr. Sullivan, I'm Daniel Rivera. I'll be one of your primary caregivers here. I wanted to let you know that I'm a veteran too. Army, Iraq, and Afghanistan, combat medic. If you need anything or if you just want to talk to someone who understands military service, I'm here." Something shifted in Sullivan's defensive posture. "You were deployed 4 times, Zuo 1, 101st Airborne, combat medic. That's tough work, real tough work." "So is infantry, sir, especially in Vietnam." For the first time since arriving, Sullivan almost smiled. Yeah, it was. Over the following weeks, Daniel worked with Sullivan in ways that went beyond standard caregiving. He understood when the nightmares came because he had his own. He recognized the hypervigilance, the difficulty trusting, the moments when past trauma intruded on present reality. He knew how to help without making Sullivan feel weak or diminished. Other staff members watched in amazement as Sullivan, who had been defensive and difficult with everyone else, gradually opened up to Daniel, began participating in activities, started to settle into his new home. Daniel had created a bridge between Sullivan's military past and his present need for care, using his own experience to help another veteran feel safe and understood. A year after Mr. Rodriguez's heart attack, Sunrise Senior Living organized a recognition event for their staff. Daniel was asked to accept an award for outstanding caregiving and emergency response. As he stood in front of residents, families, and co-workers, he felt uncomfortable with the attention but understood that people wanted to acknowledge what had happened. "I appreciate this recognition," Daniel said, holding the plaque they'd given him. "But I want to be clear about something. What I did the night Mr. Rodriguez had his heart attack, that was just applying old training to a new situation. What I do every other day, helping residents live with dignity and comfort, that's the real work. Any caregiver here could tell you the same thing." After the ceremony, several residents approached Daniel. They were all veterans, and they had something they wanted to say. "We know you don't like attention," Mr. Rodriguez said, speaking for the group. "But we wanted you to know something. You're doing here what you did in the war, taking care of people who need help. That's your mission, whether it's in Afghanistan or in Portland, and we're grateful to have you." Daniel looked at these elderly men, veterans from wars decades apart, united by their understanding of service. "I'm grateful to be here," he said honestly. "You all gave years of your lives to serve this country. Helping take care of you now is an honor, not just a job." Daniel Rivera still works at Sunrise Senior Living. He still starts his afternoon shift at 2:30, still helps residents with their daily needs, still plays cards and listens to their stories. The work hasn't changed, but everyone now understands that their gentle caregiver carries skills and experiences that make him uniquely qualified for this mission. Because true service doesn't end with a deployment or discharge papers. It continues in whatever form allows someone to use their training and experience to help others. For Daniel Rivera, that means applying combat medicine skills to elder care, using crisis management experience to keep vulnerable people safe, and understanding that caring for elderly veterans is a way of honoring the same commitment to service that took him to Iraq and Afghanistan. The skills are the same. The mission is the same. Only the battlefield has changed from combat zones overseas to the quiet hallways of a retirement home where people need someone who knows how to stay calm under pressure, recognize danger, and act decisively when lives hang in the balance. So tell me, have you ever discovered that someone caring for you or your family had a hidden background that explained their competence? a caregiver, a nurse, someone working quietly in healthcare who turned out to have extraordinary training? Share their story in the comments below because these are the stories that matter. Veterans who never stopped healing, who found new ways to serve, who discovered that the mission to save lives doesn't end, it just evolves. If this story moved you, subscribe to The Human Stories for more accounts of quiet heroism and veterans who continue their missions in unexpected ways. Until next time, remember that heroes don't always wear uniforms. Sometimes they wear scrubs and name badges, and they're using every skill they learned in war to provide comfort and save lives in peace.